Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Hour. We're going to be diving into some draft strategy to make sure you dominate the hitting side of your fantasy baseball drafts. We'll get into that right after this.
The Fantasy Six Pack Hour with your hosts, Joe Bob and AJ Applegarth.
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Hour. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me over here, AJ Applegarth. Over here, Corey Pieper. What's going on, guys?
You got the points back down correct. You're back in the midseason form here.
Didn't take long. It's kind of like riding a bike, right? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Still haven't mastered that skill myself.
Yeah.
Wait, ride a bike or the points?
The point.
I was gonna say,
I think I got the bike.
I was kind of worried there for a minute, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really worried. All right, yeah. So, like I said, for the intro, we're gonna be jumping in here to some draft strategy. This week, we're focusing on the hitting side. So, you know, all the normal 5x5 hitting categories. So your runs, RBI, home runs, batting average, and steals. We'll mix in some other stuff. Talk about some position scarcity. Just if you can, possibly like go light on some categories or not. Roster build, constructions. Decisions that are made. And at what point in the drafts, all that kind of stuff. So, without further ado, AJ, we will hand this over to you. And you know what? I'm just going to make you the middle. Let's just do that.
Yeah, makes more sense.
Of course you would agree to that.
Like the ski pole.
That one I haven't mastered. I'd like to point out ski pole, nothing that I can do well. I'm terrible at stopping.
It's not what I meant.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to know what you meant.
I tried to figure out what he meant. I was like, okay.
Well, think about it.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, wait.
All right, let's go. Now that I'm in mid-season form. All right, so basically, I want to see what you guys think about the drafting. So when you're entering your drafts this year, what's your core hitting philosophy in like a standard 12-team league? Joe, we'll start with you.
Yeah, and it really hasn't changed over the last couple of years. It is really go heavy as much as possible with power, like the power speed guys early on. And the reason for that is because you get so much more power speed early on from those guys than you do with potential power speed guys later. Like you're going to hear, sleeper potential people or like, you're going to hear be like, oh, but this is the 15-15 guy. That's not power speed. Let's be real. That's mediocre power and like plus speed, I guess. But you're trading off batting average at that point with a lot of those guys. You're trading off RBI potential with a lot of those guys. You're trading off run potential which is why they go much, much later, right? Those guys have value where they're being drafted, but to pass up on the heavy power speed guys early on, thinking that you're going to get guys like that later to make up for it, that's the wrong strategy, in my opinion. The only guys that like really make, will make me change that, right? So if I have pick 2, right, and Ohtani goes first, and obviously the hitter Ohtani goes first, and I'm staring there at Aaron Judge, I'm probably gonna just suck it up and take Aaron Judge because he's just so elite in all the other 4 categories. And he's not a 0 in speed either. He will steal some bases. You'll just have to figure out how to make it up later, but he gives you such an advantage in RBI and run and home runs that it's really hard to pass up on that value. Like I said, but there's only a few guys like that early on that I will make the exception for.
All right, Corey, what about you?
So I think the thing that I always just want to make sure I'm getting is players that are playing. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I feel like
it's a good one.
Too often people chase these, like Joe mentioned the word sleeper, whether it's sleeper or breakout or whatever, if it's a prospect, and then they start the season in a platoon, or they start the season in the minors if it's a prospect. And at the end of the season, you look back and you're like, oh, I got great production, but it came in, 87 games or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, that was fine. But then the boring, steady guy who played 137 games this season ends up as a top 100 player. Just make sure that you have a guy who's playing. Like 650 plate appearances of an average hitter is typically going to end up better at the end of the season than 350 at-bats of a perhaps more talented hitter, but someone who's not playing every day. So at the end of it all, it comes down to playing time. It's still the most important thing in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I mean, platoons are always painful to deal with. That's why we like to dig into, the spring training position stuff, later in the off season. So we'll see.
And I will say
if we can
this,
tease that a little later.
David Whitcomb, one of the writers over here, focuses a little more on Dynasty, does a podcast over here with Rich Sayer. He is a huge advocate of defense matters, even in fantasy, even though like defense obviously doesn't matter, but it keeps you on the field sometimes. So there's that. So that kind of goes along with what Corey said. And I'm sure David would love the fact that I called him out on this one.
Awesome.
So, give him a shout out.
Way to go. All right, cool. So next up here then, let's look at anything about the MLB, these trends that we've been seeing over the past couple of years. You're talking about the power trends, the steals with the bigger bases, just the general running environments. How have any of these trends changed your approach to the hitting players this year? Corey, we'll start with you.
So steals are still up from a few years ago when they redid the rules and they changed the bases, and steals initially spiked extremely high. So it used to be you wanted to make sure you had your steals secure early. I'm not nearly as worried about that anymore. Joe mentioned power. You have to get power early, but the one that I want to make sure that I don't let get away from me is I don't want to lose batting average. You can't make it up. It's by far the hardest one to make up. You very rarely can stream it off the waiver wire. So we talk about some of these players going early. Power and speed is relatively abundant as March it gets, but and we talked about him a lot last year. Right? I won't have Pico Armstrong on probably any teams because I worry that the batting average could settle under 240-ish. I'm a little worried about James Wood's batting average. So as much as I think those guys could go 35-35 for home runs and steals, I'm unlikely to take them early because I want to protect my batting average and not let it away from me early. So I will be targeting players at least through the first 6-7 rounds. I want as many players as I can that are batting at least 260. And I will, because you're going to get batting average drains later in the draft. So give me the high batting average players early.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I think Corey did kind of mention the one that I said is, it used to be that you had to go get steals super early. Like you really, and you saw guys that were like basically steal only players, possibly average. A lot of those guys came with run potential. So, I call them kind of like 1.5, maybe 2 category players because they were pretty terrible at everything else. Let's be real. No power, no RBI. Some of them couldn't bat worth a damn. They just got on base enough that they could steal, 40 bases, and that won you the category. That was it. And you could deal with that because it won you the category. It's not as prevalent now. I still think though that the power speed guys, the guys that I'm talking about in the first 2-3-ish rounds, they're so dominant overall that you really want those guys. Corey makes a great point though, and I think we'll get more into this later about the batting average. The ratios and we'll get into this in the pitching one too, ratios are the hardest category to make up. So because look, you'll find somebody on the waiver wire who can hit 30 bombs later in the season randomly, but he's going to hit probably 250. So he's not going to help you in average, not going to hurt you, maybe, but not going to help you. You might find a guy later in the season that's going to steal 25 bases, but batting average might not be great. It's really hard to catch up in batting average. And even if that guy can later in the season, the number of bats that you're getting from that player from May, June, July on isn't going to affect your overall batting average later, in the total season. So I think it really just comes down to like, you don't have to chase one specific stat anymore. There's so much more balance across the league from so many more players at this point.
Okay. All right. Good insight on all that stuff. Yeah, I don't really pay too much attention into the trends right now. Like you said, Corey, the steals are what they are. Power is what it is. So, all right. Well, let's dip into our first segment of the night here, and that is our categories. So, first question we have here is, what is the hardest category to recover from if you fall behind early? Corey, you want to take the floor on that one?
I mean, we just said it, right? So here's why it's so hard to come back from batting average. There's really, there's a few reasons. Joe mentioned first off that by the time you get farther along in the season, you're talking 2,000 at-bats in your team, and it's just, you can have a guy get 6 hits in a week and it doesn't move the needle at all. But there's just a lot of ways that you can't really target batting average in a week. You can stream home runs, right? I can look at a guy who's hitting fly balls and is going to
Colorado.
Colorado, Sacramento, right? Someone like that
Right.
who could hit 2 home runs in a week. I can stream that. I can look at a favorable lineup spot and find RBIs and runs. I can look at, if you really want to get in the weeds, you can look at terrible catchers at throwing out base runners, and you can try to stream steals. What you can't stream is batting average because it requires 70 at-bats to really make a difference, which takes 2 weeks of a hot roll. You can try and find guys with good contact, but typically what ends up happening is a tough matchup can ruin a good stream for batting average. You get a lot of players who sit in platoons, and the waiver wire is going to be full of guys who are hitting like 230, and they can do some of that other stuff, but you just cannot make up batting average. So I think once you fall down on it, you just, at some point, you just got to decide, like, you either stay ahead early or almost got to punt it at some point, which you can do that. You can do it. You can find a whole bunch of guys and hit 240 as a team and make a run at home runs and RBIs and that stuff. But that's not the way I play. I want to build a balanced team. So batting average far and away the toughest one to come back.
Yeah, I second that. And that's usually the one that I look at potentially punting.
Sure.
At least used to. And now it's more like I don't want to just have a complete zero there. So, Joe, any categories you think are more difficult to recover from than others, or kind of on board with the average one?
It's definitely average. Again, streaming and counting stats is what I call them. It's a lot easier to do than any of the other ones. And it's funny you bring up like the punting, right? I know punting used to be a strategy that was kind of popular for a while. I think that has been debunked for quite a while. It is, especially in your rotisserie leagues, right? Your roto leagues. If you get a 1 or a 2 in any category, you're not winning the league. I'm sorry. You would literally have to run the table in almost all the other categories in order to, and that is a really, really hard thing to do. Now, I'll say this. In head-to-head leagues, I'm absolutely punting average. I don't give a crap. Because who cares? If I win the other 4 hitting categories, all I gotta do is win 2 pitching categories, and then I win the week. And if I'm the higher seed in the playoffs or whatever it is, like whatever tiebreaker is, that's usually it. All I have to do is win 5 categories in the playoffs and tie 5-5, and I get the tiebreaker. So, like, punting a category is, I think, only a viable option in head-to-head leagues, head-to-head category leagues, by the way, not points. Yeah. You can't do it in points. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely average. Like I said, for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned earlier, don't think we really need to go into that any much deeper than it's just math. That's really all it is. It's math. Yeah. Like that's why.
Yeah.
And actually, funny thing, I was randomly pulling this up, and I didn't do it for this reason, but I was pulling up like the year by year averages and totals and things like that for like, you know, different stats. Do you know like the league average batting average in 2000? Does anybody know what it was?
The batting average?
What was the league average batting average in 2000?
265.
282.
270. Still really high. Does anybody know what it is as of last year?
Probably like 240.
I was going to say 235. So
245.
That's actually higher than I thought.
Yeah.
But still, that just proves that finding good batting average later on is going to be so hard. And in a roto league, again, just the math adds up that when you get those guys later in the season, they're not going to move the needle enough in a rotisserie league. In a head-to-head league, fine, because you got a week, maybe 2. That matters. But in a rotisserie league, with its full season, it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely average is just tough now because, like we just talked about it. I mean, the average is so far down from what we've been used to seeing, you know, a decade ago. You know, the game's changed so much since then, and it's hard to find good hitters. And Corey, you mentioned contact hitters. You know, I love trying to find them. I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, I feel like there's only a handful of those guys that can consistently be a contact hitter. You know, throw some stuff in for some of the other categories, but they're not blowing you away in any of them. You're really just looking at those guys for average. All right, so next up here, I got a couple of protection questions here. So get your magnums out. How do you protect yourself from being light in the stolen bases and or home runs? Corey, you seem to be laughing a little less, so we'll start with you while Joe calms down.
Oh my god.
Okay, so I keep, this is the like full nerd in me, I keep a spreadsheet on my computer of the amount, basically a target number that I want to get to. Fantasy Six Pack actually offers some of this. Joe makes a cheat sheet. It's essentially basically the same thing. This is just my own version of it, but we
also have a tracker also that does it for you. So there you go.
That does it for you. But I'm a nerd, so I do parts of this myself. But anyways, I have a target for home runs. Ideally, you get to like 300. That's a really high number, but I want to get to at least 260. And for stolen bases, that's not going to get that high. For stolen bases, again, it's more like if I could get to 160, I'm usually pretty happy about it. So I want to make sure I just keep track of it roughly where I'm at, specifically through the first 10 rounds. I want to have it at least halfway there in both of them because, like we said, we'll talk about like category specialists a little further on in this, I'm sure, but you can find players who can give you just steals or just home runs down the stretch. But you can't let it get away from you early. That's the problem. Don't take the category specialist early. Don't be too early to get to that. You got to make sure that at least in your first 10 rounds, they should be providing some of both. I mean, even if it's only 10 steals adds up. Like, it's easy to look at it and say it's not there, but especially from these early round players, if you get 10 steals from them along with 27 home runs, whatever, that's what you really want to get to. So you can't let it get away from you early.
All right, Joe, either one of these you want to highlight here, either stolen bases or homers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Corey's got it right. They're both sort of the same when it comes to, you know, you can't finding like the home run only guy or the steal only guy. Now, I will say the home run only guy at least usually will help you in run, RBI. So you at least get the 3 categories, right? A steal only guy is so tough for me. I mean, like we all remember like Billy Hamilton. I was never a big fan of him, right? Like I just couldn't do it. And you know, interestingly enough, and I said this in the second base draft strategy article that just got posted today, which is we're recording on Thursday. I and Corey, you and I both, because we shared the DARF team in the Earth League series together. We drafted Bryce Terang at second base. Now, granted, this was like a round 10 pick, maybe slightly earlier. I think they're 15
that's probably
leagues.
about right. That's probably.
But anyway, I think they're 15 team leagues. So either way, it was so. But the reason for taking him when we did was we had no second baseman, and we thought we had a lot of power, and we had no speed. All the speed just got gobbled up way before we could get them for some reason, and we were toast. And we were like, all right, we got to go for speed. Well, he ended up being a very valuable player. Just didn't help us in speed the way that we thought we were going. So we didn't draft a lot of speed later. But where I was going with this is that the problem with these speed only guys is if they don't hit in speed, they don't hit anywhere. Bryce Terang was kind of the outlier where like he didn't quite hit his speed, his stolen base totals, but he more than doubled his home run total, upped his batting average by 40 points. Like he was a super good player. And now he's going, in the 6th round, whatever it is. And, so he was really good. But a lot of these stolen base only guys, like a Nico Horner, I can't do. Like, I just don't think he's going to return the value that he produces. There is no power from him. Batting average and steals only from him, maybe runs. Like, again, he's a 1.5 category guy. You're going to see dudes like I'll never draft like a Jose Caballero. And I know they're not going early, but I'll never take a guy like him. The guy from the Rays Chandler Simpson. I'm not going to draft him. I'm just going to find the guys off the waiver wire who end up being just like him, and they're free. If I need steals, then fine, plug him in. But home runs you can find later. You just usually get hurt in a batting average at some point with those guys. It's a lot of dudes who can just crush the ball, but they'll bat 210 and you're good. You'll have to figure it out. If you need it, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, one of the guys I was thinking of for the steals is like a Lawrence Butler. I mean, he's not really doing a whole hell of a lot for you in these other categories. I mean, might get you 20 bombs, decent amount of runs, but I feel like he's kind of one of those later steals targets. Not late. Obviously, people are drafting him mid rounds, but somebody that you could wait on, in my opinion.
I still like Lawrence Butler. I think last year was sort of a weird year for him. It was kind of a down year, but still think he's going to be playing at a pretty good ballpark, and I like the potential there for him.
Okay, moving on here to our next protection question. I mean, basically kind of the same as what we were just talking about, but let's look at it as runs and RBIs. How are you protecting yourself from being too light in, one or both of these categories? Joe, we can start with you on that.
I would say that it's really hard to not be in the mix for run and RBI in projections at the end of a draft. I think you would have to draft horribly bad in order not to be. And I think honestly, the only way to do that is if you just go after like a bunch of, and remember I mentioned like the 15-15 guys, like in the mid rounds to the later rounds. If you go after a bunch of guys like that, I think you're going to really hurt yourself in the run and RBI categories. Those are very fine players and they have their place, but you can't have too many of them because when you look at a lot of those guys, they might have 15-15, but they're going to have 55 runs and 43 RBI. You got 2 or 3 of those guys on your roster, you're toast. Especially in starting positions, right? And then, if you add like a steal specialist on top of that, who's not going to help you in RBI or home runs, like you're just really hindering yourself. So, you sort of, I would say, I near the end of the draft when I'm picking hitters, I might kind of flip flop between guys who, unless there's somebody randomly at the end of the draft who is like projected for 60, 60, 70, 70, which is hard to find, or somebody who I think, it has a potential to kind of take a big leap to that spot, winning a job in spring training, that kind of thing. Then you go after a player that has huge home run totals, which usually can help you with RBI and runs right at that point, because that's kind of what you get, which is why you'll see me kind of target a lot of cheap power later in my drafts. I do think that's the easiest one to find.
All right, Corey, either of those, spark your interest or kind of agree with Joe on that?
So I think the most important part on this is making sure that this is where I look at lineup spots. Obviously, the more comes back somewhat to volume, the more that higher up you are in the lineup, the more at-bats you get. The more at-bats you get, the better opportunity you have to score runs. So if I can get a batter, even in a bad offense, Colorado, Pittsburgh, whatever, if they're batting leadoff, they should still score runs, even if their team isn't very good, just because you're going to get up so many more times. So there should almost never be a leadoff hitter on a waiver wire. I don't really care what team it is. There should almost never be a leadoff hitter on a waiver wire, just because
Agreed.
They're going to score runs. And then, 2 to 5, 2 is still kind of a run spot, but 3 through 5, again, ribbies, right? Those guys at the top get on, those guys drive in runs. So if you're sitting in your draft and there are 2 players who you're considering relatively close in value, and one bats 5th for a team, even if it's a bad team, the other one bats 7th, unless it's like the Dodgers who have 7 or 9 4-hole hitters on their team, you should favor the player that bats in the middle of the order, just because it's a much easier position to get RBIs than someone who's batting 7th or 8th. That's kind of just a tiebreaker in my mind. I want hitters batting 1 through 5 if at all possible.
Those are honestly my favorite late round picks, especially if I'm drafting like late in March, right before the season starts. You find those guys who you start hearing, rumors, oh, they're going to win the leadoff spot. And It's like, oh, okay. I'm like, I will take a chance on the guy, even if it doesn't work in the 24th round, all the time. Who cares? 90% of those players you draft are dropped anyway. But if they win that leadoff spot, slam dunk pick. I forget who it was for the Cardinals a couple years ago. Did it, and he started off on fire, and then just died. But
it was just last year that Newbar started off, wasn't it? Newbar last year who got really hot.
Well, maybe it was Newbar last year.
Newbar was last year.
I mean, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Maybe. I
And
think
I
Donovan never took the lead off, did he?
I think that's what everybody thought. It was supposed to be Donovan, and he didn't.
Yeah.
And Newbar got it. And he's now projected to do it again, but he's projected to platoon.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what happened to him. They realized he was terrible. So,
Cybra, you suck. Yeah, the athletics player I was thinking of was Esteury Ruiz for the high steals and nothing else. Not Butler. So my mistake on that. Okay, moving on to our next category here. Next segment, I guess. And we will dive into positions themselves. Corey, we'll start with you on this one. how much should you should you worry about positional scarcity, and how much should that actually influence your hitting picks for this year's drafts?
Okay, so I go back and forth on this a lot. I think that it does matter a lot. Listen to the top 10 articles or the top 10 videos that Joe and I did, or read the articles, and I talk about how second sucks, right? Second's bad, and third is bad, and catcher is probably as good as it's ever been, and things like that. But, am I going to push up Ketel Marte into the second round or just to make sure that I get him? Probably not. I want to get a good second baseman, but I'm also not going to force it, right? Like, I love Cal Raleigh. I think he's great, but I'm not going to take him at the back of the first round just to say I have the best catcher. So it's kind of it's always like a balancing act of saying, well, yes, I want to make sure that I'm not left out at second base, or I'm not stuck at third base playing someone that I don't even like. But I also don't want to force the issue and just say, well, I've got my second baseman now in the second round because I had to make sure I had Ketel Marte that I passed up on, Nick Kurtz or Vlad Guerrero, something like that. Like somebody I like more just to take Ketel Marte.
Yeah. Second is just horrible. I don't even want to deal with the position. Joe, what do you think on scarcity?
So funny. We're talking about second base. I wrote the second base draft strategy article, and it published today, like I said earlier. And this was probably one of the hardest articles I've had to write, because you've got to try to find a positive spin here and there, and there's not a lot of positive in this in this position. Nope. There was a few times I'm like looking at the at the Fantasy Pros right now, ADP, and they haven't updated their positions across the board yet, because I think a couple sites haven't totally updated ESPN. And
good luck in that happening before March
10th. Yeah. And so, there's guys that have second base eligibility. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, he's all right. He's all right. And then I went, wait a minute. I started looking him up. I'm like, I played 7 games last year. Like, he doesn't have eligibility, so I had to cross people off my list. It sucked.
It's bad.
Anyway, back to position scarcity. Perfect example, Corey. Ketel Marte. I wrote about this. I said, look, it second base draft strategy specifically is draft Ketel Marte, or I'm waiting a whole long time. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. There's a whole lot of dudes in the middle who don't make a difference. I'll take the 14th or 15th second baseman, and I guarantee you he's going to be almost as good as the rest of them. Bryce Terang's fine. Jazz Chisholm, I get it, is awesome, but I cannot take that risk on. I do not take players like him. I just don't. One of the ones I thought I liked was Michael Garcia, but he doesn't actually have second base anymore, which was that sucks. Nico Horner, just talked about him. I don't like him a lot.
No.
But again, to kind of circle back in the whole scheme of things, it really becomes I don't reach for the best guy, right, most of the time, because that best guy usually goes way earlier than he should. Ketel Marte is a great player. His ADP is much higher than it probably should be, because he's the best second baseman. Him and Jazz Chisholm, right?
Yeah.
But you're passing on guys like, Nick Kurtz, Pete Alonso, Bryce Harper, and really good pitchers at that point, to make sure you're getting the best second baseman. Where this is something that our cheat sheet that over here at Fantasy Six Pack we have does, right, is it lets you know hey, where's the tier drop off, and how big of a tier drop is there from the top second baseman to the 4th second baseman at this point in the draft. And so if I wait, is it worse to wait on second base, or is it worse to wait on shortstop or outfield or pitching or whatever it is, right? And so you will probably find that it is worse to wait on the other positions, because the value that you're passing there is so much better. I just want the best players early on, and I'll figure out the rest later. Weirdly enough, like the position that everybody's like, oh, it's the deepest position, and it's outfield. No. Honestly, most of us play in 4 or 5 outfielder leagues. That bottoms out real hard. And the reason why is because there is a boatload of players that platoon at that position. And so you get left fielders who only play 4 days a week. You have maybe 50 outfielders. Maybe. That might be stretching it too. Actually, I would have to really look. That's stretching it. I'd be comfortable with like 35-ish outfielders. Like 35-ish outfielders, actually, now that I look at it. I don't know why I said 50 at first. 35-ish outfielders is my cutoff as far as like I'm really comfortable having these guys in my lineup every day.
And about 12 of those go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. And so good luck getting them. After that, you're dealing with, Ryan O'Hearns, who are fine, right? Santander, who might work, right? There's going to be dudes later on in this position that have potential and have, staying power for a little bit and have upside and sleeper potential. But man, you can get hit harder at the outfield position, especially in 5 outfielder leagues than anywhere else. And so to me, and a lot of people I don't think this is a popular opinion. I really, especially in 5 outfielder leagues, I really target outfielders early to make sure I've got at least 3 that I really, really, really like.
Yeah.
And then over the span of the season, I'm going to figure out those last 2 spots.
I mean, that could be easy, like late round plug and play guys to find somebody who's cashing in on steals on a hot run. Or someone who's been tearing the cover off the ball for a couple of weeks and helping you in average or power or something like that. But man, I'm looking at these players on Fantasy Pros. I don't even really like much past 25. I mean, even getting
it's
there,
tough,
there's names here and there that kind of drop in and out.
I only said 35 because I still like Lawrence Butler. Taylor Ward has value, although batting average is tough. But I hear you, man, because the guys right above him are like Nemo and Joe Adele, which I mean, he had a good 2/3 of a season. So that's
first
hard.
Time we saw it in
it's tough. I'll say this too, like the problem with position scarcity isn't so much always like people always think like, oh, it's just the top guys. Like, oh, it means that like the top sucks or the top is really awesome and then like the rest sucks, right? Totally right. Second base and third base are 100% that this year. Catcher is kind of always that. There's a few more guys this year that I like, and it's getting better every year, it feels like. The problem is, and I've said this a lot, and I said it on PitchCon, is that you run into leagues or drafts, right, where and third base is the prime example of this. That middle tier, that bottom, that the middle tier to the end of like the top 10 or 12, right? People panic and they go, oh, I got to take my guy now, or I'm going to be left with the last one, or I'm not going to get somebody in the top 12. Who cares? I say, who cares? And I said it in the second base article. The difference between like the 6th second baseman, which right now is Jackson Holiday, who I like, go O's, but I don't like him enough, right? I probably will have 0 Jackson Holiday. The difference between him and second base 15, probably not much, unless he breaks out and just busts all projections. The difference there is nothing, but it's like a 10-round difference, and you're passing on so many good players, so many more reliable players that I think will help you in the long run. You want to be risky? Go ahead, take the Jackson Holidays at round 8 or whatever it is that he's going. That's not my game.
Yeah, I hear you. It's definitely something to factor in. All right, so on to our next question here. Joe, which positions are you willing to wait on at hitter, and which ones feel you must address by round 5? You already kind of touched on outfielders.
I'll just give I'll give like 30 seconds to a minute here. Shortstop, I'm absolutely hammering early. The guys at the top of the shortstop position are the elite of the elite, man. Like, I love the depth of this position, but the guys at the very top, like, I want one of those first guys. I'm not gonna lie. They are so good, and the problem is that, like, if you don't have the top 3 pick, it's hard to get a Bobby Witt, right? But you can still get a Gunnar Henderson, a Francisco Lindor, those types of players. I really, really, really want that position. And then I mentioned outfield. Outfield is another one I'm going to hammer pretty hard, pretty early. I don't know how many I'm going to get by round 5, but I would say I'm going to have 3 by round 10 or 11 probably in most drafts. If it falls right, things happen, I'll adjust, but that's usually my goal.
All right. Corey? What are you looking at yourself?
So I will wait on shortstop. If I get a good pick, I will take the LA De La Cruz or Bobby Witt or Lindor. But after that, I am perfectly fine waiting till the mid rounds to get my shortstop at Corey Seager or Bo Bichette. I still like Willie Adames. Dansby Swanson's awesome every year. So I am fine waiting at shortstop. That is not one that I will target in the first 5 rounds. I agree with Joe, though. I want an outfielder, minimum of 1 in the first 5 rounds, preferably 2. And I would like to fill one of my infield positions, whether that is second or third base. I want one of them. We mentioned some of the names already there. Ketel Marte, Jazz Chisholm, Bryce Terang. But I am fine with some of the third base options. Like I said, I will not reach for it, but I would love to getting Manny Machado in the 4th round. I like getting Austin Riley in there. Like, if those players fall to a decent value, I'd love to take one of those 2 and fill that position. And as far as like willing to wait on catcher, I'll wait on catcher for a good value. I said, I love Cal Raleigh. I don't want to pay the mid-second round price with what's there. I would be fine if he fell to like the 3rd round probably. And
I wrote the first base draft strategy article also, and I will say that in studying it, I'm willing to wait on first base quite a bit too. I get that, like, the Vlad Guerreros and Pete Alonso and Kurtz are awesome. But like, if you miss on those top 5 or 6 guys, it's kind of the same as third. It's like, if you miss on the top 5 or 6, what are we reaching for? They're all the same after that. They really are. Like, it's just wild how similarly are through like the 16th or 17th first baseman, and then you got guys behind that like Christian Walker who like could be good again, right? It's like there's dudes in first base that always pop up, man.
I did my first official draft yesterday, or finished my first official draft yesterday. I think I took a first baseman in like the 17th round with Jonathan Aranda.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
I think that's 15 teams, but
he's not the first baseman I would probably target.
No, that was what I was looking for. Right? But I was fine with it. Like,
yeah, I look at first base and I look at somebody who should probably give me a lot of power, and Aranda ain't it, unfortunately. Good batting average guy, but I mean, I also question, like, was the 316 for real? But anyway, I don't want to get that deep in the woods with him. But again, point is that first base you can wait on. Probably more so than catcher, really. Catcher, like, dude, you're gonna get 0 after like a while.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer to have kind of the same thing. Like, I'd love to go after one of the top 2-3 shortstops, depending on where I'm drafting. I'd love to get Jose Ramirez. I mean, just completely lock up third base. Don't have to even think about it again. I mean, unless you have like a corner outfield corner infield spot that you have rostered. But even there, again, you could sit and wait on first baseman and just plug somebody first baseman in there. So I think we kind of pretty much already hit on this next question here, but let's just throw it in for shits and giggles here. Corey, is it better to lock in an elite shortstop or outfield early, or are you more looking at waiting and then just stacking the value?
So we already sort of mentioned this. I'm not going to I'm not going to pass up Bobby Witt because he plays shortstop, right? Like, I get it. If I have a spot and Bobby Witt's there, I will take Bobby Witt all day. I will not force, like Joe's talking about how he wants a shortstop. I would take, you mentioned Jose Ramirez. I'll take Jose Ramirez over Bobby Witt just for the third base over the shortstop. But I do want minimum of one outfielder, preferably two. I want two outfielders in the first 5 rounds if at all doable, but I will not force it. But if I could get something like Kyle Tucker and Wyatt Langford seem to be players that I get a lot, that I'm going to end up getting a lot because of where I rank them. And I like that. So yeah, I want outfield early before I want to force shortstop.
All right. Joey, anything to add or pretty much good?
I typically agree, but I do think that if there's a tiebreaker and I don't have my shortstop yet, I might lean shortstop at that point. Just because, like, I don't know, for some reason those guys just seem to be just like premier athletes at this point, and like I'm just, they just seem to keep popping up. I mean, like, who the hell knew Zach Neto was going to be as good as he was last year? Like, I mean, I liked him, but not that good. Damn, that was awesome. These guys are just incredible.
Okay.
Indeed. All right, Joseph, would you like to tell our fans and listeners here about our Fantrax connection and the Fantasy 6-Pack series that we have rolling out?
Yeah, so if you haven't heard, the Fantasy 6-Pack series, a over 100 player fantasy baseball league that we do, similar to like TGFBI if you've played it, Razzball. There's other industry leagues out there that are similar. We do ours over Fantrax. It's a little bit different, a little more casual. We use different categories like quality appearance. We use save plus holds. It's a weekly league. Actually, this year we're changing it to a bi-weekly league. So Monday and Friday lineup switches. Weekly fab on Sundays. It's fun. And then, you know what? Winner gets that kick-ass trophy right back there. By the way, I'm pointing to it with my thumb. That thing is cool. So from our good friends over at Fantrax, Trophy Smack. If you want to play, though, you got to create an account over on Fantrax, fantrax.com/fantasy6pack, and then check in the details of the show. There is a link to the sign up for the Fantasy 6-Pack series, or check out my Twitter at F6P_Joe. It's pinned to the top of my profile to sign up. It is totally free. It's just a lot of fun. Other analysts join as well from like Razzball, Fantrax, Baseball HQ, Pitcher List. There's a ton of them. A bunch of the F6P staff join as well. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, jump in and join us. See what you
got. AJ helping run the show this year. So it'll be interesting.
I'll be doing much better at that than probably the rotisserie scoring. I'll just leave it at that.
You don't have to do the rotisserie scoring. Thank God that's done by the.
Well, yeah, but I mean, me drafting for rotisserie scoring.
Yeah, it's all right. You'll just use the cheat sheet, man.
Of course. I mean, the Fantasy 6-Pack baseball cheat sheet out there. Get a membership. Join us there. Get some of the excellent reading material that's behind the paywall. We have plenty of stuff that's not. But
tons.
You want to get the good info. That's where you got to go.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep going, man. Let's finish this up.
Yeah, let's look at our last segment here, and that is our roster build. So, Joe, what's one roster construction mistake with hitters that you see drafters making every year? Probably me.
Man, which one do I pick? We've mentioned it already. I do think the one is over like reaching for a position. And it may not be, like I said, it may not be that you go, take the Kettle Marte at his ADP. That's not reaching. I do think at his ADP, that's not a great value. It's not a horrible value, though. I think the problem becomes that panic in the 8th, 9th, 10th round when you're realizing, oh man, there's already 7 or 8 second basemen drafted or third baseman drafted. I've got to go get mine before they run out. They're not going to run out. The rest of them are all the same. Don't panic. Just let them all get drafted, because then guess what? You'll get number 12 unless some weirdo in your draft takes the 13th or 14th before you take yours. Like, whatever. And even still, it's probably not going to matter that much. You're going to have much better players in your outfield at other positions, a much better starting pitching, relief pitchers, you name it. So I would say it's just reaching too early to fill your starting roster.
All right. Corey, what's the mistake you see people making and cringe every time you see it?
So I'm going to pivot here. I had an answer. I'm going to change my answer to...
Oh, did I steal yours? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What?
Did I steal yours? I didn't realize.
Oh, no, you're good. No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I think people go too early on rookies that have not debuted, just to say that they have a rookie.
Yeah.
And I think people don't give enough credence to players that come into the season with an already injury. I think, yes, for every, Joe mentioned Zach Neto. Zach Neto was awesome last year. For every Zach Neto, you get 4 or 5 players that the injury lingers all season and they don't deliver on where you want them. And then rookies, like, I think people just love the idea of having this, like the young debut player and be like, oh, I was the first one to have him, which is great. Yeah, they can hit on that. That happens once in a while. But again, I do not really want to draft any rookie with the intention of starting them right away, unless it's some type of a keeper league, right? Like we have the Fantasy Six-Pack League. I took over AJ's team. I drafted Nick Kurtz really late, and so I get to keep him really late. That's
like 24th pick, man. Like that's nuts.
Yeah, like that. That's different, right? Like that's something where I plan to keep him. But beyond that, in a traditional redraft league, like I wouldn't have drafted that because he wasn't going to play for a while. And so I think people go rookies too early and they go injured players. They don't give enough credence to how long the injuries actually last.
Yeah. To kind of piggyback on the rookie thing, it's also people overhype the spring training performances, right? Now I'll say, Spencer Torkelson worked, right? But he didn't get overhyped to the point where he was like a 15th, 16th round pick. He was still like a last round pick in a lot of leagues, or near a last round pick.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's this guy's hit, 10 home runs this spring and he's hitting 290. And he's never been that as a player. I don't care who he is. It happens all the time. So just be careful. I think the biggest thing you can say with both of those combined is just be careful with the hype.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Next question up here in roster build. Corey, are you specifically drafting the boring vets on purpose just to stabilize a volatile upside pick?
Yep.
Or do you
your favorite, man?
Let them stay out in the pasture?
Yeah, this is like my sweet spot here. The old boring guy.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yep, this is like my guy, right? I just keep pushing him.
That's why I wanted to start with you.
Yeah, this is what I do.
We got. I think we got shit on a lot for that one last year. It was not as good as we thought it would be, but he wasn't horrible.
I think I finally dropped him at the end of the year in that league too, and I'm pretty sure you picked him up and beat me with him.
I did.
Made it way
I
worse.
Totally did. You're right. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Forgot
this
about
is lovely.
that.
After I held him all year and ate all the
against
bad stuff, only for him to finally get hot at the end of the year when I finally dropped him. But like
that was pretty awesome.
I'll take the old boring guy most of the time in my leagues over to balance out some young hotness, because typically the old boring guys are pretty reliable. And Yeah, sometimes it comes back to bite me, and I eat the Brian Reynolds way too long. But I also had Salvador Perez in that league, who looked terrible for a substantial amount of the season. And then, hey, eventually Salvador Perez remembered that he's one of the best 10 catchers of baseball. And most of the time, these guys revert to the mean. And sometimes you get Brian Reynolds, who, look, Brian Reynolds played pretty well down the stretch. I'm probably would be back in. I don't know what his ADP is. I don't have any of that up in front of me again. But, like, most of the time, a proven veteran who has 4 or 5 years of doing the same thing is going to get back to being the same player. It's just what it is. Like, predictability is something that I like to go off of, and sometimes it hurts me, and sometimes, I feel like I win a lot. So I will keep going back to the old boring guys.
Yeah, I myself prefer the young hotties, but
Way to go.
Oh boy, I knew, man. Ooh. All right.
That's why I married one. So are you into the boring vets or no?
Yeah, I
Aside
mean,
from taking them to beat Corey with his own.
that was pretty awesome. I totally forgot about that. Thank you for that, Corey. Yeah, look, I'm totally with the like, and yeah, it kind of depends on how I've built my team. Honestly, like if I can take a little more risk, usually it's later. Like early on, I'm pretty set on who I want. It doesn't matter what age, how long they've been playing. Like you're not going to take, somebody who's played not at all, right? Or, super early, right? You're not going to play a guy who has only played like one season and been like mediocre in like the 4th round, right? So these are like middle to late round picks normally. Like when you're talking about like, oh, do you take the boring vet versus like the upside younger player? It depends, honestly. And I hate saying that. I used to give Dave Eddy crap for saying that all the time, but this really does depend. A lot of times I will lean the boring vet because I know what I'm getting, right? But if I feel like my team is solid as a rock, I am going to take a chance on that young upside player. I'm also going to probably balance it out a little bit. I'm not going to go like 4 upside guys and like 0 vets. Like I can't have my bench be totally nothing and then be like, oh, well, I'm dropping everybody after the first week because they played 3 games total. And then, I got to go fight everybody on the waiver wire and hope that I hit on some of these guys. So, but the boring vets, man, they really do have a place and they do get discounted a lot. And I still think Brian Reynolds is being discounted. I think last year was a little bit of a mirage. Like, I don't think that that's really his game. His power dropped off significantly. That was kind of weird. Yeah. I mean, look, we were discounting Eugenio Suarez last year. Look what happened. And I was all over that. I was like, I waited on third base in every single league and got Suarez in every single league. That paid a lot of dividends. So these guys, you will find vets because they're like, oh, no, he doesn't have any upside. Who cares? He doesn't need upside. That's the point with these guys, right?
He's filling
you know what they're getting every single week, every single game from these guys. It doesn't matter. They don't need upside.
Yeah. All right. Next up here, how much should you basically react to the room with your roster construction, or you have your plan going into the draft and you're sticking to it? Joe, which side of the fence are you on more often?
It's always a just. Always. I will go into a draft with this is, I've got pick 10 of 15 or pick 10 of 12, right? Whatever it ends up being. And I go, okay, these are the guys I think I'm going to get early. And then, that's sort of the base for your team. And you're going, all right, I'm going to build around this and hope things fall the way that I think they're going to fall. AJ, you were in the fantasy 6-pack league for many, many years. You know how quickly that crumbles. Corey, you've only been in it once. There's, especially in your home leagues, man, there's some wacky things that happen. People just love their guys. There's one team that wants to go 6 pitchers in the first 8 picks. There's one team that wants to go, catcher in the second round, second base in the third base in the fourth, and you're like, whoa, all right, like there's some weird things that happen. You've got to adjust, and I do firmly believe that 95% of your picks should just be best player available early on, and then you kind of fill out the rest, right? And then you fill in the holes as it goes. You can't do that the whole draft because otherwise you would just you wouldn't have a full roster of players. You wouldn't have backups where you need them. But early on, you've just got to take the best player available because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the stats come from. They just need to be there.
Yeah. Corey, which construction reaction are you in favor of more?
So this is going to sound a little odd. I would say that drafting is an art, not a science, right? Like you can go into a draft and have the best plan laid down, and then you just lock yourself into this build, right? And then what happens if something goes wrong, right? Someone reaches down and takes your guy, and what ends up happening is you have this great plan, and then you lock yourself into a hole because that was what your plan said, and then you pass up all this, a great value. But you can also just say, okay, well, here's the way this draft is going, and three, like you guys are talking about with position scarcity. 4 second basemen are gone. I got to take a second baseman because I don't want to miss the tier. I don't want to be emotional in the way I pick, right? But I also don't want to miss out on what's happening. So I would say it's like 60%. I have a plan. Like I said, I have an idea of what I need for stolen bases, home runs. However I get there, I don't necessarily have a specific player that I need to take. I know what I want to get for categories, and then I adjust by what positions are gone. This is why we tell you whether or not you just use the fantasy six-pack tools or you make your own tiers, however you want to do it, have a tier. Don't just say, I need this specific player. Because guess what? Unless you have the first pick and you know for sure you're getting that player, anything can happen. Anything can happen in these things. So don't just be so rigid in that, when you have to have a certain player, know what categories you need, know what position do you need, that type of stuff, and then adjust from there.
Yeah. Can I add to that actually? Dude,
Sure.
there are so many people, and it doesn't matter if it's baseball, basketball, hockey, football, whatever, that like in our Discord, on Twitter, wherever it ends up being, are like, hey, I've got the 8th pick. Who do you think I should take? And then who do you think I should take coming back around? Like, I don't know because I don't know who's going to be there.
Yep,
exactly. I literally cannot tell you the answer to that question. And that goes back to it's an art. Like it needs to be reactive. You can't go if you go in with that plan, you're screwed.
Yep.
It's never going to work that way.
Yep.
Never.
It's all about taking values. I mean, drafting is literally just taking the value. And like Joe said, he described it as best player available as long as you can. That's fine. That's what you want to do. That's fine. I said I like to think of it as targeting my specific positions or specific categories as filling it and getting as close to the numbers as I want. That works for me. Whatever it is, just don't get locked into whatever you're doing. Like you have to be able to adjust this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As an art form, you want to go into your drafts feeling like the appendage of Michelangelo's David, and 3 picks later, you're going to be the cutoff ear of Leonardo. So, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, figure out which art form you want to be. Either way, you're screwed. So, all right.
Pretty sure Van Gogh cut off his ear. Just saying.
I was going to say, Van,
you're doing great. Like I got you, man.
I knew it wasn't Leonardo. I'm like, that's not
nobody's listening at this point. You're lucky, AJ.
What's that?
Said nobody's listening at this point. You're lucky.
Maybe.
Because that was bad.
Vincent Van Gogh sure as shit isn't.
Oh no.
Brings it right back. Brings it right back to close out strong with the error of the night. Closing segment.
Well,
each of us will give one draft rule for hitters. Corey, we'll start with you. What's your absolute draft rule for hitters?
draft skills, not stats. Don't go back to what they did last year. Look for players. I mentioned it earlier. Players that are hitting home runs, even if they're not hitting home runs. Look for players with high hit the ball hard in the air. Look for fly ball rates. That'll translate to home runs eventually, even if it didn't come. I'll stick to that. Look for players who get opportunities to run as opposed to players who are actually stealing bases. Sometimes it's just as important to how many opportunities are available to steal. That type of thing. Don't just go off of what they did last year. It's easy to do that because it's easy to pull it up on Baseball Reference and look at it that way. And I find myself guilty of that sometimes too. But I don't, just because they did it once, they can do it again, but it doesn't mean it will happen easily.
Oh. Joe, what about you?
I think the best rule I can give, and it doesn't really apply just to hitters, but it probably applies more to hitters than it does pitchers, is really just don't overreach, don't panic for that position. I get position scarcity is a thing, and you do have to bump up those positions a little bit, but I think sometimes it gets a little overdone. So that would be my thing, is just don't overdo it.
Yeah. I mean, mine is kind of the same thing. Like, don't outsmart yourself. Don't pay too much attention to spring training stats either. Kind of like what Corey was saying with last year.
God, yes.
Spring training, everybody's there just practicing, tweaking, tinkering with different shit. It's not, oh my God, this guy's got 17 home runs in 2 weeks of spring training.
You could do it the other way also. I love those.
Oh,
People
exactly.
panic that this guy sucks. It's like, oh my God, who cares?
Yeah, and it's like the recency bias is that struggle's real with spring training.
Unless the guy is hurt coming off of last year,
True.
You want to see him do it in spring. If he doesn't do it in spring and he was hurt last year, then you're like, uh-oh.
The only thing I care about in spring training are injured players. Honestly, that's all I care about. I want to see Josh Hader, we're talking about hitting here, but I want to see Josh Hader pitch in spring training. He's coming off of a shoulder injury. I want to see Ozzie Albies coming off of a fracture. Was it a wrist or a hamate bone? I don't remember. Broke it at the end of the season, right? I want to see him. But beyond that, they could go over 40. I don't really care. They'll be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and then just the other thing along the same line, like with the rookies, prospects are the same way. Like, don't feel like you have to spend too high of a draft pick on the number one prospect on MLB.com. It's top 100. Like, unless the guy's coming up in April and he really is the cat's meow, then fine. But don't waste your picks on unknowns. Prospects are called prospects for a reason. So
yeah,
just be smart.
I'm gonna add one last thing, because we didn't get into different types of scoring leagues a lot in this. You have to know your league. Now, we were kind of focusing on categories, mostly roto style drafts. Like, if you're in points leagues, if you're in head to head weekly leagues, those are totally different strategies, in my opinion. You can sort of you can take a little more risk when it's weekly type of stuff, right? You can make it up later. I will absolutely in the fantasy six-pack draft, because it is a weekly head-to-head league. I will take a little bit more risk because I know eventually I'll be able to make it up. And in points leagues, you've just got to know your scoring categories. A lot of points leagues are heavy, like OPS, basically, is what it ends up being. Steals guys are totally worthless. So you've just got to realize it. You know what? So shameless plug. The cheat sheets will help you with that. We have a points one and a categories one. So
shameless plug. I just finished an article about points leagues. I called it the 2.5 P's of hitting, power, or points leagues, pitching, power, and I kind of had a cheat and to go with on base percentage, but 2.5 P's, because those are really what matters for points leagues. Yeah, it was. Well, I
agree, man. Totally agree.
2.5. So
totally agree.
Yeah, that'll be out at some point. I don't remember when. And I think most importantly, the most important thing to all fantasy baseball is just don't cut your ears off. So
exactly. Or the
right.
other appendage. Don't want to cut that off
Seriously,
either, Lorena.
Gosh.
now we're really talking. Protection at all times.
Stay away from cornfields. All right.
All right.
So
Well, we were going to get some news in here, but we went a little long, but I think better off for it. If you want to check out some of the news and the reaction to all of that, we've got the free agent tracker on the website. Corey has done a lot of that, by the way. So go ahead and get that reaction over there. And yeah, again, hit subscribe, hit like. We love you guys for leaving comments. All access memberships are open. F6P pods to save 15%. And we will see you next time to talk some pictures. Peace.